All right. Tell you what, guys, it's been a while since we've jumped back on here. I apologize for the stepping off the grid a little bit. It was not planned. It was planned slightly. I got a quick notice that I went away for a little while. Did some hiking with one of my youngest kids for 8 days out in the Sequoia Mountains. Highly recommended if you ever get the opportunity to hike off the grid in, the craziest time of the world, to do it, because really nothing matters than besides getting up, packing your tent, and hitting the road and getting to your next beautiful spot. And it was actually probably something I really, really, really needed. I'm excited to go live today. I'm excited that we are all getting a chance to reunite, if you will, because it's been a minute. And tonight, however you want to call it, guest, I'm very excited. It's something that I've been trying to coordinate probably for over five weeks now. It's an individual that I came across in a Facebook group that ECO is a part of for leaderships in small businesses, and she just joined. And she has a restaurant in Palm Desert, and she has kind of done it all in owning this. She started small, and now she has not just one, but another restaurant in Balboa Island called Chow. I'm Chef JoJo. This is Extreme Culinary Outfitters, and this is my favorite thing that I do so far, is called Leave It on the Line. And tonight's guest, without further ado, is Salima Nurani, owner and operator of Grill-A-Burger. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Chef, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. Doing
Good.
really well. I'm finally, I'm back. I'm glad that we kind of coordinated this.
Yes.
For everybody out there, we're a part of this really kind of cool little group on Facebook where everybody kind of supports each other, and we try to figure out how to market ourselves better on Facebook, and we kind of, all of our experiences go together into one. And you joined, and you said you had a restaurant in, I think you said Newport and Palm Desert, and I was like, hey, I have a podcast if you'd like to be on.
Yeah.
And you're like, sure, let's get this started, because if I don't do this now, we won't do this.
No,
and you've stuck with it. You came back after me and you're like, hey, we need to do this. So I appreciate that.
And thank you.
No, it's good stuff. So you're as busy as me. I was talking to you several weeks ago, and we compared kind of schedules, and I was like, oh my goodness, well, this is serious stuff. Like, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's kind of, we both have crazy schedules. So does it come with the territory once people try to, they just keep chipping away at it and they just add one more thing? What's one more thing?
Yeah, I think we just don't know how to say no, maybe. That's your whole life, is pleasing other people. I mean, your entire career is about making people happy, and so what's one more thing to make somebody happy? But no, I think like you, I love it. I love being around the people. I have a great, fantastic team. I want to do a quick shout out to them. We had about 25 staff at Grill-A-Burger. We have about 15 over at Chow. So, you can't do it alone. It's a team. We really have a great team.
Yeah, I often talk about on my other episodes of Shift Drinks about how much of a ass I was in the beginning of my career, and how much I actually got to learn that you cannot do this alone. It's so important to remember who you are, and and that you're really standing on the shoulders of the giants that support you. So that's tough. Now, when we first talked, you are a owner operator. You did not set out to become this restaurateur, this chef, or whatever this adventure that you're on. So how did it start? Where are you originally from?
So I'm a funny story, because I was born in Africa, actually, Tanzania. My husband's from Kenya, but then we all immigrated to Canada in the early 70s. So I was raised in Canada. I tell people I've spent 38 winters in Canada, because that's how you think about Canada. It's cold. And then we decided, one day my son had some health issues, and we decided we were going to come out to California and kind of check out the scene. My son's health dramatically improved, and we thought, we got to figure out a way to stay. And like every good immigrant, we decided to look at some business opportunities, and I would have never predicted a restaurant. I mean, we had done small little restaurants, but my husband's a serial entrepreneur. So he looked at the numbers and he thought, yeah, I think this would be a good one. And our broker actually that we were working with said, I think I have this funny little place in Palm Desert that you might be perfect for. And we're like, Palm Desert, all right, why not? So anyways, long story short, 2012 we bought Grilla Burger. It was kind of not doing too well. The fellow that owned it was a not a trained chef, but he was a cook. Came up with some great recipes. Not so great at the business part. So when you and I talked the first time, we talked a little bit about, owning a restaurant is a lot about running people, and it's a business.
100%.
So,
I'm showing everybody your website right now, Grilla Burger, Palm Desert, and I hadn't had a chance to jump on beforehand, but like it's Gorilla Burger, get it, with the gorilla on the front. Like I think
you sound just like Guy Fieri did on the show. Totally, that's exactly what he said.
I cannot wait to jump into what that did for you guys as a group. You had Guy Fieri come out for Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. It had to probably, business probably started to boom after that a little bit. You're on TripAdvisor. You've got a strong Facebook presence. Your Yelp, Instagram. I mean, you've got everything kind of dialed in. But before we go into the ins and outs of how, quick, well, I don't know, 2012, and then your Best of the Valley. We won the Best of the Best. You've got Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dive, Food Network, Los Angeles Time, Westaway. You have tons of press on an amazing little spot, but that doesn't come overnight. Let's go back to that 2012 moment where the broker was like, I think I got this quirky little restaurant for you guys. What was that? What was the idea behind it?
We were just looked at the numbers and kind of thought, and the original owner was supposed to stick around and train us and introduce us to the vendors and blah blah blah, but didn't go well. He didn't stick around. So he didn't.
That's not a surprise. I'm sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
And
right?
Exactly. And so we just managed. And like I said, we had staff. So good news about our staff, nobody leaves, which is fabulous. Even our dishwasher has been with us since the beginning. So everybody just is family. We take care of each other. And especially in a time of crisis, I will tell you, your staff are your team, not my staff. They're our team. They really are the reason why we're here. And everyone pulled together. So anyways, we, moved things around. And I think the way we sort of thought about running a restaurant was just about how we want to eat at a restaurant. So every decision we made, we said, what would we feel like if we walked in and we saw this? What would we feel like if we, somebody treated us this way? How would we like this burger? So everything was based on the golden rule. How do we want to be treated? That's how we wanted to treat everybody else. So it sort of was our anchor, and our secret sauce was just about people. And as you know, service is a big part of the industry as much as food is. And I think that was where we really shined. Sean?
What did you do before you worked in a restaurant?
So both my husband and I are trained as teachers. My husband was a corporate trainer. But we've always done business. We've always done real estate investments or little retail. It's always been in our blood. And I was a trainer where I trained, so I came to the States based on a contract where I was training elementary school teachers on social emotional learning, which funny enough is all soft skills related to hospitality and life.
As soon as you said teacher, I was like, you're good. You're good. Once you learned how to explain or train to somebody, I figured you got to edge up on most people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but training teachers is tough. I will tell you, kids are easier. I'm sorry. I'm saying that because I'm a teacher, but we like control. And so I did that all across the country. I got to see the US in all its formats, all its diversity. So when we came to Palm Desert, we had a lot of customers in the desert from Michigan, Chicago, and Texas, Florida, Canada. So it was really nice for me to have a little bit of an understanding of the landscape of the people in America. And I love it. I know, that the country's going through some crazy times, but it is a great country. It really is. And I'm saying that as a Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that as a Canadian that transplanted from Tanzania.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that wasn't just like over like one day.
That's a whole other podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, it sounds, well, it would have to be. You don't just show up from Africa and Tanzania and be like, okay, we're in Canada. This is what winter's like. I mean, like, what is like your first, like, where's Burlington Coat Factory? You know, like, or whatever we all need socks and coats. This is
Kmart.
Yeah,
Kmart
like,
was the store.
Kmart was the place. Where were you in Canada?
We were in Calgary, Alberta.
Calgary. Okay, Alberta.
So the Flames, the Calgary Flames.
Okay, yeah. Hey, hockey.
Right?
We had a very good winning streak against the Flames for quite some time.
I think we just broke it maybe a couple of years ago only.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah. We've had some issues. But anyway, we're going to not talk about that. We're going to move on from hockey and not going to really focus on that too much.
Sorry about my
your dog?
Yeah.
So as we were getting everything ready, so you have this little dog and you're like, this is my special dog. So, because everybody's going to hear from the dog throughout the moments. So can you just give me a brief history of your time with the special dog?
It started because at Grill-A-Burger, somebody from one of the shelters came and asked for a gift certificate. And here's a little nice thing I'm really proud of at our restaurant. We give to everybody. Everybody that asks, we have a policy. We don't have a particular charity that we give to. We just give to everyone. We don't give a lot, $25 here and there. But to everybody.
But you do what you can. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it adds up. So it's good. But this lady came and said, can you give us this for a raffle? I was like, sure, here you go. One thing led to another. And she said, do you have a pet? And I said, no, we're moved from Canada, blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, would you consider fostering? Because then you'd get them out of the kill shelter. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. How do I say no to that? Yeah. And then we were foster failures. Yeah.
Look, I know right now, if someone came to me and said, hey, would you foster this dog? I'd be like, why don't you just leave him here? Because I have such affection for dogs. It's like, that's my weak spot. I have a very big problem with it. Like when, my oldest son, when he was very young, Jaden and Colin were very young and we needed to get dogs. He wanted a dog that looked like a stuffed animal and and so we went out looking for this, this dog that looked like that, and it turned out that was going to be a St. Charles Cavalier, right, or whatever. It's King Charles Cavalier, right? And then my wife found a King Charles Poodle mix at this one place. We had been to 2 places that day, or maybe 1 or 2, and we showed up, and they brought out 2 dogs. They brought out the King Charles and the King Poodle mix, and they brought out one dog and put him in my arms, and I was like, I don't care what we do today, but this dog's coming home with me. So we were, young and married, and we had 2 young kids, and we bought 2 dogs in one day because I had already.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? I'm gonna be a foster failure. I know that.
Yeah.
You become attached to it.
It should be a T-shirt. We should all be part of the club.
Part of the club. So we might hear from what's the dog's name?
Buddy.
So we might hear from Buddy from time to time. But we'll give him a treat. Now, because our dog inside is probably going to be barking pretty soon because his best friend is out walking another dog, and that's just treason. All the kids get upset when our daughter goes outside because he just barks and yips, and he's like, somebody left me. I think the biggest thing that they say that's a transition for what we don't think about is when everybody gets back to whatever normal is, that the dogs are going to be like, where'd everybody go?
I know. They're basking in this. They love it. And it's so nice to hear that so many shelters are out of dogs, right? Out of pets, out of animals.
About time, right?
Right. Yeah, it's great to hear that.
So I have to go back and like my first experience in a kitchen was, and I have to say this, I was a bartender first. I started as a bartender, and I did some off-site catering gigs that were really crazy, and then I ended up doing banquets, and I was working at this really crazy restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. And the kitchen always seemed like pandemonium to me. It's where I wanted to be, but I was very nervous. There was a French chef in the back, and he screamed at everybody, and I didn't really understand how it worked or what the dynamic was, or how things were rung up. It was very overwhelming, and I didn't own it. So
Right.
you bought this business and you're like, all right, I've eaten at a restaurant before. This
hard
shouldn't
can
be
it be?
so hard. How hard could
Yeah.
it be?
It was hard. It was hard.
What was the and it may be the top three. What were the top three things that you didn't see coming or you saw coming that you would say to people that are starting out that maybe have an idea that they want to do? The top three things to look out for in your mind?
You know, that's interesting because I know we're going to talk a little bit about post-COVID stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the top three things that I suggested for post-COVID survival would probably be related to the top three things of survival in general. It was kind of a universal sort of strategy, but definitely, I know it sounds crass, but you know, running a business is about the money, and you need to really be able to work the numbers. You need to figure out your costs and your sales and where you can value add and where you can maximize those dollars. It's, you know, you want premium ingredients, you want the great staff, and you got to manage that all because I've had friends that were in the restaurant industry and trained to be so, and they've closed. And partly because they just went overboard on buying the best and beautiful, most amazing chairs because they fell in love with the aesthetics and the optics. And, you know, they brought in like 40 hostesses because they just felt like they needed that. Well, you know, when you have a payroll and there's 400 people on it and you're paying your rent and it's $22,000 a month or whatever, at some point your numbers are going to not make sense, right?
No, I agree with you. So know your numbers.
Know your numbers. And I guess going with that is emotions. Emotions play a hard part. This is where it's good to have a bit of a partnership. My husband is the numbers guy. He can, like most guys, maybe I'm being stereotypical, they can kind of turn off the emotions where I get a little bit more affectionate and I want everyone to be happy, you know, and if I did that, then the numbers probably wouldn't work. So I think just trying to balance out decisions. So your numbers, when it comes to restaurants though, I do think, you know, your two main things are your food quality and your service. Like people have to bite into the burger and feel like, wow, this is great. But they also have to feel like they were treated like family or royalty. They had to feel important. It's, you know, we have an older crowd, they're pretty affluent and they expect service. So you got to be able to read that audience and know who your audience is.
I think that you nailed so many topics that I try to preach about. And one of them, you know, I teach at this really, well, I try to when I have the time. And there's a culinary school here in Tustin called Culinary Lab. And I love the guy that does it. I love the classes. I love that he broke out and knew that there was a problem with from a culinary school standpoint, and he was trying to change that, and he's just a disruptor in everything that he does. And I've had him on, I think he was the second or third guest on Leave It on the Line. So without me praising Chef Ryan too much, I mean, he's awesome. Like, he's really just an amazing guy. I get to teach these little business classes, and one of the days of, I guess, not reckoning, like I come in and I'm like this guy that, you know, I really sell a lot of hot dogs and beer and chicken tenders, right? And but that's not who I wanted to be. So I guess I crush some dreams when I show up, and I'm like, oh, everybody else teaches the fun and sexy classes. I teach the shit that's going to make sure that you pay your rent. I teach the most important classes, you know, and I have this whole chip on my shoulder about it. And there's an exercise where we literally break down, how many seats do you have in your restaurant? How much square footage are you going to be, you know, we take a square footage of average in Orange County, and then we work that all the way to how many covers you need to do a day, all the way to how much you're paying your servers, how many servers can you afford, how many dishwashers, how many cooks. And it's a 6 hour, it's like a 6 or 8 hour little class. But inside that class, you just get a glimpse at, wait, it's not about how good your eclair is. If you sell it for less than what it costs you to make it, you're going to run out of business. It's like,
you know what,
tough.
You are so right on. And I hear this from a lot of people who are chefs, because I think it's hard when you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're a chef it's hard to not take it personally when you have to sell hot dogs because that's your big seller.
Oh, yeah,
you want to make, filet mignon, but nobody wants that right now.
You fell in love with something that you love making and creating dishes that make people happy. And then you have to put a filet mignon on the grill and you have to cook it well done and serve it with ketchup. And you have to be like, there's certain, now you can go hard in the paint. You can absolutely go hard in the paint and find yourself, and you can work through that and have it's like kitchen stupid versus kitchen tough. How tough can you be versus how stupid can you be? If you make a stupid decision, you have to be tough enough to live through it, or you have to have enough money to live through it. So it's such a unforgiving business in that regard, because we feel, and we are these artists that really want to express ourselves through this trade. It's a trade.
Yeah, it's the emotion about it. And that goes back to my first point, that you have to be able to take the emotions out of business, because the numbers and the emotions don't always work well together. And so if you're doing this business, it's always good to have a chef and an entrepreneur together, because they both are valuable and they need each other. But often chefs who are the entrepreneurs usually have to give up on some of their, like you said, I have other friends that they're chefs at country clubs, and they've got to make ham and cheese sandwiches for their members, even though they want to make this amazing cordon bleu.
Yeah, like the country club gigs are very tough. It's like,
right.
As you try to find out, there's, and what I'm excited about as we discuss this stuff is that you're a restaurant owner and you have a very talented chef. I get to ask you all the questions about working with a chef and get that other side of it. Usually I'm interviewing, chefs that are like, it's, the servers never know their menus, and, this owner didn't understand me, and, it's very tough. And now I get to say, hey, so you guys bought this restaurant in 2012, and you hired you had the owner was going to show you how to run it, and they bounced, and then you're standing there with some cooks, and you guys got to figure it out. And then now you're trying to manage, and I'll say this, chefs do come off a little emotional sometimes, or they're very, I guess you can really have a difficult time dealing with a chef because everything becomes emotional, right?
Of course, but it should. I mean, it's your art form, it's your creativity, it's absolutely, it's personal, and that's awesome. But I think then the restaurant model that you would work on would be different than a restaurant model that maybe is in it to make a profit so that everyone gets paid a lot, and it's around for a long time. But it can be done. I mean, it's not impossible to have a chef that takes it personally, but they're kind of like superstars. It's kind of rare to be able to do that, to make money off of some haute couture dish, right?
Yeah, there's you got to have the backer, you got to have something that gets you there, or you got to have the will, right? There's restaurants that make it. There's Michelin stars, there's James Beards, and then, there's can be the rest of us in a certain regard. That have to do it. I know that my friends, he loved working in country clubs. Like, it was like he liked it. He's like, all I have to do. To him, it was a very good experience, because he's like, I know that John Smith wants that tuna fish sandwich this way. I know that Mr. Beauregard wants his cheeseburger this way, and if I can make those 2 or 4 members happy, everybody shuts up.
Well, and if you think about it, isn't that kind of what you're there for? As much as you want to make something, your target audience are the people that you need to make happy. So sometimes you got to think about, am I here to make the dish that I know that is best served this way, or do I need to make Mr. So-and-so happy?
Yes,
right?
You have to figure out, and I think that's the biggest part of the exercise that I like people to do in the seats, in the servers and stuff. You need to figure out what your restaurant's going to be, right? Your husband and you are serial entrepreneurs, and you set out like, this is a good business. I can look, if we sell it for this is how much we're going to make. It's a very cut and dry. It can be very, very cut and dry. However, you're going to deal with somebody that only wants to, like, you're going to deal with somebody that loves making food. Like before our show tonight, my son was like, "Oh, I'm hungry." So I'm like in the kitchen, you know, making dinner so he can have dinner while we're on this. And, you know, I get joy out of that. I still truly love to make food. It's like one of my passions. Like, and
I'm so glad to hear that, because that doesn't always happen with chefs. Sometimes when they're in the restaurant business, they start to hate stuff that they love.
I'm very jaded, but I'm putting on a good face with it. Now, like, but I don't have to, like, here's the thing is, like, I'm in a different level now, right? Like coming up as a line cook, I came home and ate, you know, I came out as a sous chef. I was coming home and I was eating ramen noodles or just whatever is easy, a cereal, you know, and I didn't want to make food. I was burnt. I was crusty. I was old. And then I started to do more of the business side and develop, and then I missed it. So there's all these different levels of progress, and you have to figure out. Some people want to make their best stuff, but you have to be in it for the business side. So if you're going to make the best ramen, you have to find a place that you can sell the best ramen for the right price. It's going to keep you open. And then that's where the knife comes into that's where the dagger hits you in the heart, right? That's what you have to find.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to just knowing who's going to buy whatever it is you're making. And if you're just making it because you want somebody to feel joy, that's fabulous. But if you actually want them to pay for it, then, you know, you got to do what they want. Or if your job as an executive chef at a country club is to make the members happy, then that's your job. It's not necessarily making the best, you know, bolognese sauce.
Yeah, you got to draw, like, you got to figure out what your gives and takes are. What was for you? You say you're a people pleaser, and I love that, because I think all of us are in the industry. All of us in the industry really do a better job at taking care of others than we do ourselves. At least the one, like, we're very good at paying attention to everybody else in the establishment, and we're not as good as looking in the mirror and dealing with what we need to, right? And it's something that I talk about often. And whether you're in the kitchen or you're owning the business, because I mean, it's hard for you to be in the kitchen when you own the business. It's not, you can't do both.
Well, first of all, I would not be good at it. That's just not my thing. So when we were on the show, Guy Fieri, I wasn't supposed to be in the kitchen. I wasn't supposed to be part of the episode. It was supposed to be our cook and my husband. And, you know, the production staff comes in and they do all the B-roll with you, and they go through the practice and make sure, you know, don't look at Guy this way. And they're very particular about all of that. So they prep you. And I just stood back because I thought, I'm not going to be on TV. I don't care. Well, then on the day of the show, he and I were just chit-chatting because, you know, I talk a lot. And he's like, all right, let's go in the back, Salima. And I'm like, for what? He goes, well, you're going to come cook with me. And I said, no, I'm not. And he looked at the producer and said, did she just say no? I was like, yeah, I'm not even ready. Like, I didn't get my hair done. I don't have makeup. I'm not going out. And he said, you absolutely are. And I was like, I'm absolutely not. And I literally like froze. And then the producer, so Guy Fieri walked away. He was kind of upset. The producer came around the restaurant, came to my husband and said, tell your wife she has 5 minutes to get ready. She has to be on TV. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, I don't know anything in the kitchen. And he looked at me and the guy said to me, you know, I'm a chef. I'm totally going to help you. And I was like, okay, but all these moms out there are going to laugh when they see this because they know. They know.
All the people that know me know that this is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 1,000 questions about the Triple D. It
was very cool. It was like very cool.
Okay, you get the restaurant in 2012.
Yeah.
When did Triple D hit your doorstep?
So 2017, they called us or they emailed us. And I don't know if you know this, but as a restaurant owner, we get all sorts of weird emails. Hey, you know, we'll make you #1 on Yelp and we'll do this and we'll put you and then you realize it's going to cost you $8,000. And I don't have that kind of money to spend on marketing. So no, we're not doing it. So we kept getting these emails from this citizen production company. And I thought, who the heck is this? We kept deleting them. So finally they got a hold of me somehow and called me and said, why are you not answering my emails? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. And she said, have you heard of the Food Network? And I was like, yeah, now I'm listening.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, then she said that they're in charge of diners, drives, and dives, and would we consider auditioning for the show? And I said, well, what does it mean? And they said, well, you'd have to close for a couple of days. Now this is February in the desert, so we're in the middle of season. March is the month where we remember I just told you that numbers are important.
Right.
March is probably where we do 25% of our business, maybe even 30% of our business for the whole year we do in 1 month. It's crazy, insane. We have an hour-long wait. So she said, well, we'll come out in March and you'll have to close out for 2 days. And I was like, I can't close for 2 days. Are you kidding? And she said, are you sure about this? And I said, yeah, I need to take a couple of days to think about this because that's a lot of money for me to close down. And she said, okay, I'll call you back tomorrow because we can't wait.
Oh, wow.
I had to give an answer. So I talked to my husband. He's looking at me like, Salima, of course we're going to do this. This is amazing. Of course we want. I'm like, oh, see, this is the emotion part of me. I'm like, we're not supposed to do this, right?
Right.
And he's like looking at the numbers going, of course, this is what we're going to do.
He's like, oh, this will pay off in the long run.
Oh, it was $100,000 commercial is really what it ended up being, but genuine, like truly, truly genuine. We had to audition in the sense that there's a producer that takes all the information, all your health records, all your recipes, everything. They talk to your staff, kind of get a feel. They produce a storyboard, give it to Guy, and he handpicks through all the menus. So there's 26 restaurants in Palm Springs area that they were considering. And he just goes through all the menus. And for whatever reason, I had thrown in a recipe for the Buddha burger, which is a turkey burger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drew him to our restaurant, is because he just said, there's so many beef burgers out there, which he did. We did do a beef burger as well. But he said, I just got really drawn to this Buddha burger because it's got turkey and cumin and ginger and garlic, and it's more Mediterranean. And so then that's how we picked our restaurant. But the producer told us, he warned us, he said, there have been times when by the time the guy gets into the restaurant, if he doesn't feel good about it, he literally will just walk right out.
If it's not
feeling like this is what he saw on the storyboard, like if it's not genuine to what the story was as it was presented to him, he's not going to do it. And when he bites into that burger, it is absolutely the first time he's eaten that burger. Like
wow.
there's nobody coming in ahead of time or any of that. It's truly authentic, which I really like to share with people because I was kind of cynical with the whole thing. But and he's not, it's a working studio. He wasn't overly friendly with everybody, I will tell you that, but he was working and his wheels are turning the entire time. But I will tell you, he was great with my boys. I have 2 boys and they were both, in the show, and he just took to them, taught them how to mop the floor, which was awesome. I was like, as a mom, I thought, could you come back next week and do the dishwasher?
He is such a controversial character in the industry that it's so crazy because people are like, he's not a chef, he doesn't, he's just a celebrity, he's not that great. And like on the other side of it, he does things like when he goes into your town, and people don't talk about this, he he picks hospitals and stuff, and he goes in and talks to kids with cancer, and it's just that's who he is. So like there's many sides to this guy, and I've worked with people that work very closely with him, and they say that he is so genuine, he's an amazing person, and he's awesome.
He is.
I have, there's people on Facebook right now there's talking, and they're like, he's not a chef. He's not really a chef. Yeah. And it's interesting. I have never picked sides about Guy. I think I've always been so jealous because Guy was the first winner of the Food Network star. And this is back when God, this
30
is
30 years.
Yeah.
30 years, I think. Yeah.
No, it's I hope it's not 30 because that would make me want to throw up on the floor because I'm a lot older. But I was just started. I mean, I might have been 3 years in, and I was like, oh my God, they have Food Network star. And I really wanted to dive. I wanted books, I wanted restaurants, I wanted this celebrity because I love talking to people. I love the industry, and I thought that this is, my family loves cooking. I thought this would be it. We were going to own a family restaurant. You have to own a restaurant to be a chef, because I grew up on PBS cooking shows where, these people really knew what they were doing. Some of them. I mean, Justin Wilson was just an actor, but Yan can cook. Julia Child, Graham Kerr, a lot of these people went around, and that's when, like, you know, Emerald was on Justin Wilson in the beginning, and that's when he was the chef of Commander's Palace, and that's kind of like my heritage is in this South Panhandle type thing. And I just thought, if you're going to be a celebrity chef, you have to own a restaurant, right? I didn't know you could just, you know, do some cooking classes and become an empire. I should have jumped ahead. So I found myself.
He is a businessman, I think, more than a chef. I mean, I think he's definitely talented in the kitchen, and he knows the different flavors. But he is definitely the emperor of his empire. Like he is a businessman for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and that takes it. That's a tough row to hoe, because you have so much pressure.
Well, his producer was saying is that after he got stardom through the Food Network, he said that guy went through a lot of personality changes, right? I mean, he couldn't just walk into an airport anymore. He was like, and I didn't believe this until the last 3 years. There's groupies. There's people that plan their entire holiday around where Guy ate, and it's a big deal for people. They're really invested in this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, that love him or hate him, he's doing stuff. What did it do for you guys in your restaurant? Did it blow the doors off the hinges? You said you're on an hour wait. Did it take it to the next level for you?
Yeah, absolutely. What it did was it changed our target audience a little bit. I think we were just sort of this little local joint that everyone sort of knew that they could come to, if they didn't want to eat at the country club, or they wanted to meet their friends, or it was just sort of like this quirky little place, and everybody likes burgers. If you think about it, the restaurant was opened shortly after or during the recession. But to eat a $10 burger, people could afford that. Yeah, people could afford that, but they couldn't afford a $40, $50, $80 steak. So it did well because
that's good timing.
It was good timing, and a burger is pretty universal. And I did some research. It's one of the top burgers and pizzas people can definitely eat every
Burgers
week.
And pizza typically always do well through recessions, good times, because everybody will pay $10 to $17 for a burger.
Yeah, crazy. And so I think what was great about the show was that it exposed us to a whole other world. And in some ways, I will tell you, Chef, it was tough. Like, this is why I got into communications as my study, because once we were on the show, well, you know this because you're famous on Facebook.
No, not famous.
I
love it. Yeah,
no,
sure.
But you've got what, 30,000, 25,000, 17? I don't know. You've got a lot of followers.
But you're big followers on Facebook, but we have a couple of thousand on YouTube. We're getting there. But
there's people that say not some nice things about you once you're on there. Maybe you haven't experienced this firsthand, and I hadn't until we were exposed on Diners. So I think it really got me a little bit more thicker skinned, because I had to really understand where people were coming from and know that maybe we weren't going to be everybody's favorite burger joint. That's totally cool. But until then, I only knew us as the best burger. I wasn't told any different.
I think that the internet has created this environment where you can say just whatever the hell you want about anybody and get away with it. And I think I've had some pretty good scathing reviews, not just from the internet, but from people. The business doesn't allow your head to overinflate unless you've shot through the glass ceiling to a certain extent. And I hope that my friends and family will always kick me in the balls and say, hey, you still that idiot that forgets to, put gas in the car, or, like whatever it is because I'm not that. I've always got other things going on in my head. So I'm kind of a ditzy character to that extent. And it's sometimes I think that
it's good survival technique.
I've been fired by guests that walk into buildings that, know the owners, you know what I mean? Like, and they're like, I'm going to call them right now. I just got a comment from somebody on Facebook. It says, anytime he needs to kick me, he will. He's been my friend for 25 years or something crazy.
Wow.
But when you go into business and then you plateau, like not plateau, when you like catapult into Triple D, you get this stamp of approval that thousands of people look for. Thousands and thousands of people, when they're like, we're going to go to Palm Desert, and they type in Google Palm Desert Triple D, and they want to know, are near me Triple D restaurants. I did that when I wanted the kids to be excited about this road trip we did in 2017. Yes. I was like, hey, this place has been, like, this is where we're going to go. This guy did this or whatever. Because it makes them feel like they found a secret. Yes. And I think that's what he tries to protect. And right. I've never spoken to him, and I don't know him. I've just heard really good things about how he treats people. And I've got two people that I know on social media, one that I'm probably more close with than the other, and they deal that like they're on his grocery games all the time. And then there's another chef that we've talked on Instagram a little bit, and he is a big, he was at his birthday party, and like he was there for him when he went through brain surgery. I don't know him that well, but everything that I get from any interaction is that he's awesome. And for him to come into your show, do a little bit, you guys look really good on it, by the way. I see you over there working the fryer, right?
That's oh my gosh.
So if you go on the website, guys, you guys can see what, and he's like me, where he makes the comment like, grill a burger, and you have the grill, I finally get it. And like he's looking for that interaction. So you guys did a freaking...
He's talented. I'll tell you, I don't know about him as a chef. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of different opinions on his.
How much time did you spend with him? You know what I mean? Like
he was only supposed to be there for an hour. I think he was there for almost 5 hours. Like he was there a long time, and he redid the whole thing, and he's a potty mouth. I will tell you, he is hilarious. He's hilarious, and there's a lot that doesn't make it on the show.
He's a potty mouth. Did you just say he's a potty mouth?
He is. He's so funny. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. That makes me feel so much better about my potty mouth. But I try to keep it clean on the...
He's truly a chef in the kitchen. He just fires off. And when he, there was one of his producers went to go grab one of the eggs. We had a Cobb salad, and it had been a long morning. And so one of the producers went to go grab an egg and he thought Guy wasn't going to notice. Well, Guy stopped the entire thing and said, "What did you just blah, blah, do?" And he made the guy, it was a young producer, was one of the assistants, made him run around the parking lot with our big gorilla mask on. I mean, he was hilarious.
So, so that was 2012. You get it, 2017. 5 years you're owning this restaurant, grinding away. Triple D comes in. You turn them down. You're like, I don't think so. Your husband's like, what's wrong with you? You finally do it. And then it blows up a little bit for you. And then so you have 2 restaurants currently.
So this other one we bought, it was in partnership with friends that we had made when we lived in Newport for a few years. But we've always wanted to be in Newport. It's a great little area. And my husband, again, the serial entrepreneur, kind of was looking at some different options. Anyways, purchasing a restaurant is not as simple as just, here's my money, off we go. There's a lot of back and forth and checking everything. Anyways, we bought it and we acquired it March 1st. And then COVID hit March 13th.
Oh.
So it was...
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, it was like
all right. Let's back up a little bit. You've got all the success. You're like the best restaurateurs in the universe. You're making good money. You got Triple D. You've been. Now, do you live in Newport currently?
No, we live in Palm Desert.
You live in Palm Desert, and you always like, oh, I want something in Newport. That'd be awesome. You come across this little restaurant. It looks like it's going to do good. You buy it March 1st?
We took over March 1st, yeah.
And then shutdown was March 15th for California, wasn't it? Or 12th?
13th.
13th. Yeah. Not that you remember that day.
Friday the 13th. Who doesn't know where they were Friday the 13th of March?
Jesus. Yeah. And that was, And now you have 2 restaurants straight ownership during the pandemic. And then earlier, someone, let me just go up on my, Ariana Cruz said, COVID made my personal business shut down. How are you doing during COVID currently? What are you doing to make it through?
You know, I think it comes down to, I think we were really conservative and sort of always saved for a rainy day. You know, always really kept a good eye on the numbers. I hate to keep saying it's about the numbers, but you know, I could tell you that it was really up to my husband. I hate to give him a lot of credit. He'll never watch this show, but he
well, then he deserves zero credit if he's not going to watch the show. It's all you did all the work. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, good. I like that.
You like that?
No, it's yeah, this thing just came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't even know if there's a secret sauce to it. I think you just sort of had to do what you could for each day. And then the governor basically said by 3 o'clock, you got to be shut down, or by 5 o'clock, you can open up again. Don't you remember, like July, right before Independence Day weekend, he decided at 3 o'clock, okay, now you could open again. And we were like, wait, what? So I think you just have to, like on my infographic eventually that we'll go back to, it's just, you got to be nimble. And not to say that somebody who closed wasn't nimble, because I think there's forces beyond everything you can do if you just weren't in the right location, or if, you know, running a restaurant is hard work. You're tired. And we had a restaurant here in Palm Desert that were phenomenal. They did, you know, takeout meals where they made soup for people. They sold puzzles. I mean, they were doing everything. They were creating sauces. And then at some point, they, when they were allowed to do indoor dining again, apparently they let too many people in. And then they got blasted on social media, and the guy had to close down because there was death threats on him. So, I mean, this COVID thing is beyond just business. It is political. It is emotional. So, you know, anyone that's shut down, I don't think it's necessarily anything they did. I think sometimes it's just a perfect storm. And I don't know what to say that would make everybody safe, whatever they're in, because it just got big. I don't know if you experienced it where you were in your industry.
My industry is completely FUBAR right now because, you know, I run big places that have 17,000 people in them. So like this is catastrophic. You know, like Live Nation is struggling. And how do you have a concert? How do you have an outdoor festival? How do you have a hockey game? And people are buying, you know, cardboard cutouts and stuff. But like I was talking to a very good friend today, and he's like, you know, thanks for this. I'm gonna this another effort to try to make it through.
Yeah,
it's so difficult. How do I word this and it makes sense? I think it was 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I posted something where a guy asked, like he has 2 taco restaurants in LA, and he asked a guest or customer to wear mask, you know, to protect his people. And he just said, screw it. You know, they went ape shit and were like sending him death threats and all this. And he's like, I'm just going to shut down and give it a week or 2 and let this blow over so I can open back up. I think that it is political. It's crazy. You know, there's so much to it. And then there's just people just trying to make a living, right? And there's a guy that posted right before I left for the camp out. He's like, hey, just found your channel. Love it. I'm subscribing. I'm in Louisville. My cooks are making more money at home than they are working for me, and I can't get them to come back. What do you think about that? There's so much to it. Not just from now you're married. How many kids do you have?
2 boys, 21 and 18.
21, 18. So you've got these 2 college age knuckleheads running around your house. I can say that because they're boys, and boys are knuckleheads.
Totally. 100%.
100%. And you have 2 restaurants during COVID, and you're also getting your master's degree, which is going to allow us to talk about what this kind of whole thing spawned on. I hope that your professor is okay with the 45-minute intro into your history. But I think it's important for people to understand that You came from an entrepreneurial background. You opened you bought a restaurant, and then you made it successful. You were 5 years in. This wasn't like a overnight success. This is 5 years of hard work, dedication, making it, and then you turned down Triple D the first time I called you, and then you finally.
I love how you say that, like as if I really.
Well, I mean,
I turned them down because I didn't know who they were.
Well, I mean, I backed out of it.
But you make it. But you make it sound really good, though. I like it.
Yeah, well, you're like, I'm not closing in March. I need the money. I mean, I'm the same knucklehead that didn't do Cutthroat Kitchen. Like they're like,
you didn't?
No, it was a very interesting time. I just came out, and my U.S. Foods was like, hey, if everybody that signs up to try out for you Cutthroat Kitchen, I get credit for it. And I miss him dearly. He was such a dear friend. He passed away of cancer a couple of years ago. And Bill was like, I was like, I'll do it for you, Bill. So Matt and I went in there and signed up for it. And I played like, I guess, jackass. Well, I didn't play it. I just let my true colors show. And I was like, I'll crush everybody. If you have, and they're like, well, what would you do if somebody took your knives? I said, I would give them my knives. I would with a plastic fork. I was just like off the charts, jackass. And they're like, we want you on the show. And we had just opened. We were just opening Honda Center, and I made the choice not to go on for two reasons. One, I guess I didn't want to cause any type of recourse on the Honda Center. So like I a couple of episodes, and a guy forgot like bread in the pantry, and he couldn't make a Philly cheesesteak. And I'm like, great, I'm taking over. This is the first time in history that an arena was going to go in-house after asking a third-party vendor. And I'm like, be the chef that talked all this shit and then goes on, Cutthroat Kitchen and completely bombs. And then it would allow people to talk more shit about the food and beverage that was at the Honda Center. And I had to make a choice. Was it about my personal career, or was it about the career of all the managers that came with us and all the employees and stuff like that?
That's big. So, that's big. That's integrity.
That's what I tell myself. I'm going to tell myself that when I go to sleep at night, when I'm like, should have done it. But so I digress. I guess I went off on myself a little bit there. So you turn them down, and then now you have all this going on, but you're also literally getting your master's degree at USC.
So I had this dumb idea somewhere along the line, some goal that I was going to get my master's before I turned 50. And then when I was 48 and a half, I realized, shit.
You better hurry 50.
Up. Yeah. I'm not good at math. I told you, I'm not a numbers girl.
You better consult with the husband. Don't give him any credit. Yeah. But anyway.
And then I went, shoot, I got to get this. So I started looking at different programs, and I never thought USC would be one of them that I would look at, because I just didn't think I could do it. And but they had a program in communication. So I'm an educator. I'm a teacher.
Right.
And I'm an entrepreneur. So I didn't want to do an MBA, because remember, I don't like numbers. I didn't want to do a teaching master's because I knew I wasn't going to go back to the classroom. So communication seemed like the best program for me, because, as you know, it's involved in everything you do. I mean, whether you're working with your staff or working with your customers or working with your kids, I mean, you need to know how to get your message across. You need to know who you're speaking to. And I needed to understand that more from an academic standpoint, just because I felt like my brain was starting to go a little mushy. And I had this goal, and decided, let's do it.
So you've been pushing on a communications master's degree, 2 restaurants during COVID, and one of your projects was to create an infographic to help people in the industry. So,
yeah. I didn't even know what an infographic was. I didn't even understand what it was until I had to do one.
Until you had to do one. But the one that you did is quite astounding. Let me see here. There we go. Pulling up the infographic right now. Let me get it to where everybody can see it. So we're at the top. I'm zooming in. Okay, so right at the top, it says post-COVID 2020 independent restaurants. It says right off the bat, close to 30% of restaurants will close due to COVID-related loss. Do you think 30% is a number, or do you think it's a number that
Again, this was what, 3 weeks ago now?
3 weeks ago now.
It kind of feels like, I don't know about you, but every time I see something that's a week old, I feel like it's 1984. It might as well have been done in 1984.
Right.
It just feels like things have changed and continue to change so much. But I think the latest information, the National Restaurant Association said something like, 90% of restaurants have been affected for sure and have had to adjust. So that's a pretty big number there. I think the restaurant industry brings in like $1 trillion worth of business into the US. That's a lot. That's more than, like Apple. Apple just got to $1 trillion a couple of years ago.
Early on when all this stuff started, I was posting a lot of stuff for the Independent Restaurants Coalition or Alliance, and I was trying to get information out there, and you have it broken down into 3 steps, and I think that this is what everybody kind of is trying to deal with, and I can't wait for them to kind of dive into this because they can give some insight, but I thought it broke it down really well. You're gonna have to change, you're gonna have to adapt, and you're gonna have to overcome a lot of this, and you're gonna have to pivot. So your 3 major points are assess your assets, pivot your product, and evaluate the execution. So in each one of those, you have 4 bullet points. An infographic, basically your role plan of like being safe and getting things done for getting through the COVID pandemic. And the crazy thing is that we have an audience that goes across the entire nation, and each of us, each state is completely different. California is completely shut down, back to normal, like back to phase 1 or whatever. And then you might be in Minneapolis or in Texas listening to this, and you're like, we're good because we're a rural, like they're not shutting us down. But you assess your assets. Assess your assets.
A lot of S's, right?
A lot of S's. Asses. Assess your assets. Now, being in the Facebook group that we are in, like I remember a lot of people trying to fill out the PPP or the PPE, like all the business loan stuff, right? And it took them a long time to gather the numbers and get the proper, because a lot of stuff inside the mom and pops can be under the table or not, for cash, and evading that. So then you don't have the proof of how much you're spending, which can be extremely difficult.
And I think the hardest part with all of this was you had to do all this paperwork in the middle of trying to run your restaurant in the middle of a pandemic. So you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're at the restaurant probably way more than you were expected to be because all of a sudden your staff aren't available either. And so you're doing all this PPP stuff, and I understand the need for the government and all of that, but I don't think people in those offices that create these stupid long packages really understand the reality of how many restaurants actually applied for the PPP, not because they didn't need it, but because they just didn't have time to get to it, to gather up all that information. And restaurants aren't always good at the paperwork, and this is where I credit again my husband. I do credit because you do need to be on top of it, and you can't if you didn't claim everything you were supposed to claim, you weren't going to get PPP. So I mean, they did it smartly in the sense that if you pay taxes, you were able to formulate the maximum sort of grant assessment or grant allowance.
Yeah, and it was so weird because I have so many friends that have different, I have so many acquaintances online, and they would post, I filled out all my I filled out the paperwork, my bank hasn't responded to me, I'm no longer, and so like one guy has 3 restaurants and he's losing it all because and it's no rhyme or, it seemed like there was no rhyme or reason based on what I was picking up from my data collection, which is all like, listen, a very, very little data collection of, as far as it goes.
Why would you pay attention to that if you didn't have to? It's a headache.
It was crazy. Like, so you guys, you assess your assets, complete all loan and grant applications. Did you guys go through this process? Was this like a mind-numbing process?
Absolutely. And CHOW was hard because one of the stipulations is you had to be in operation February 15th. Well, we remember we took over March 1st. So then we had to get in touch with somebody from SBA, which is like trying to find somebody from Mars. Anyways, we ended up, we were able to get it, but it was just literally 5, 6, 7 hours a day of being on the phone, talking to the bank, and the banks didn't have a clue what was going on, you know, and
no,
it was just a real jumble. I will say that with Chow, we had actually taken out a loan and we were already signed everything literally on the Friday. And because it was raining, the bank guy from the I'm not going to tell you which bank it is because I was really upset with them. But they pulled the loan. They pulled the loan.
Wait, because it was raining? Because it was raining?
No, because we didn't end up meeting to record. So we signed everything, but it never went to the recording stage, whatever that means. Anyways, they have this fine line, but they pulled out because of the virus. So, you know, it was a lot of money that we
my goodness.
We needed to purchase the restaurant, but we purchased the restaurant on the assumption that we were going to get this loan. They were really just slow.
Oh.
So now we, purchase this restaurant and we don't have the money that we thought we had to buy it. So, you know, it's, I'm telling you, it is a numbers game. As much as running a restaurant is all about the food and service, it is also, there's so much behind the scenes. And so to anyone that wasn't able to make it through this, it's because there were so many steps to get through it.
Yeah, and so, you've got a whole team. You've got your husband and you. Both of you guys can chop up stuff and try to pass it over to somebody. But if you're doing it alone and you're the leader of the staff in the kitchen, you guys aren't the chefs. You guys hired a chef. You have a guy that's making the food. You have so like you can look forward and try to navigate through the crazy that's coming out. Can you imagine being the chef owner, the purchaser, the guy that's driving the menu, the lady that is buying everything, and everybody's looking at you like, what's next? What do you want me to do? What do you do? And you're trying to be like, you guys prep the food. I'm going to be on phone for the next 3.5 hours trying to get this done.
You know what? And I think you've just made me realize really the secret sauce is you need support. You can't, running a restaurant in this day and age, it's no longer, you need somebody who knows how to do Facebook and Instagram and get your name out there and market and campaign. You know, no longer do you go to the local paper and say, can you make an ad for me? You are now creating your own ads on Facebook. You need to figure out what Canva is and, you know, how to put together your optics of things. I mean, it's a whole, I don't have a floor of people. I don't have a legal team. I don't have a special finance team. I don't have an HR team. No. It's us. But I have a frontline staff and I will give them 110% recognition. They were the ones doing what needed to be done. But
did they help you guys with your social media or anything like that?
No. They were at the restaurant. They were doing the front line.
Oh,
and because they were doing that, we were able to do all the behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, you know. You know that.
Be tons. Yeah. No, I mean that's kind of that's where I live now, is behind the scenes. Right. What kind of strategies did you guys implement on your social media stuff that you saw you saw a return on, or that helped you the most?
Yeah, I think our Facebook posts, Instagram, we had to create a voice is what I'm figuring. And I kind of got that from Wendy's on Twitter. My kids would always say, Mom, did you see what they tweeted? And I was like, why would you care about Wendy's? But it was interesting because they created a voice. They created a person. They humanized their brand. And so I feel like Grilla Burger, Chow, you know, I don't do their social media, our partners do, but you create a voice based on your audience, based on where you're situated, based on what your product is. You know, we're casual, fun, gourmet burgers. So that's kind of our voice. When somebody gives me a review that's like goofy and not very nice, I kind of give it back to them like, hey, you know, I totally appreciate that. And, you know, you just have to speak to the people. That's what social media has done, is it's allowed you to be direct with people. And they want to hear directly from you. They want to understand, hey, chef, why did you make, you know, this way? They like to hear your response. Mm-hmm. So I feel like social media has been really helpful in sort of bridging that gap between what happens in the back of the kitchen and what happens at the table when you're not at the table. Does that make sense?
It
absolutely opened your doors.
Yeah, and it allows you to have a voice, tell your story, and take the criticism so you can become better. But
Exactly.
like in this new normal, which I hate saying, which is on our site, I mean, like you guys have done a really good job on your website to go through and look at those things and say you've got several menus on your, yeah, you've got several menus that are, you know, I Dream of Weenie Doghouse, Where's the Beef, Beyond a Leaf Salads. You have all this stuff. You keep your website current. You keep your people informed. You keep your staff informed. And right now you're fighting the good fight. And you're trying to do so much inside your community. I mean, your dog, if he barks anytime soon, will be attest to the fact that, you know, as a foster failure, you really want to make a difference. And just taking the time out and discussing this with us and going from the start to finish. I know we spent a lot of time on the start, but I think a lot of people should really remember that this was, you looked at it from a business standpoint and you did it for 5 solid years before somebody came knocking on your door and gave you a boost up. And then you were doing well enough to where you thought you could buy another restaurant, and you knew the numbers and you knew the game. And then COVID came out of nowhere and smacked you in the face and said, hey, you need to close. You need to do this. You need to do that. You can open. You can only do partial takeout. And you've had to create a system that allows you to evaluate. You create a plan, you try to execute, and then you evaluate what works. And I think that your infograph does a phenomenal job. And it's 2 months old. It feels like it's old information, but if you really take it for the bullet points that it is, and then I'll jump back to it because I know that you're let me see if I can pull it up. Your professor will be super happy about this.
I know. I was gonna say I didn't pay. I just want to say, Professor Floto, I didn't pay Chef.
Yeah, like if you think about it, like you have to be nimble. You must be quick. You have to assess your assets, right? You got to figure out what you have, and if you can get an extension on rent and somebody's going to work with you, great. If they're not, then you have to figure out what that means. Then you got your product. Like, you know, I was talking to my spice guy today, and he said this restaurant in Seattle that was like, you know, been top of the line gourmet, like really high end, opened up their parking lot and started to do more of a, you know, everyday type menu just because they wanted to generate sales. And then they had to probably evaluate that. And there's so many different ways to do it. What's tough is that you have to battle the social media stream of onslaught. Everybody's at home, so like your advertisement, your post doesn't get as far, so you have to be really original in doing it. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that the social media game isn't just throw up a post. It's like throw up a post, it's comment, you connect, you have to do all this stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me, talk about your beginning, your middle, and it's definitely not the end. I can tell that you guys are in this for the long haul. And you're doing it for the right reasons. It's been
we've got a great team, and it's because of that team. There's 50 employees that we want to make sure that they all have jobs, and a lot of them, like you said, a lot of them are at home. You know, they're high risk, or they've got older parents, or whatever the reason. You know, and I don't blame a lot of them for staying home and making more on unemployment. Dude, I'd totally be right there with them.
When you do the numbers, it makes sense.
It totally. But I also have to give a shout out to the crew that stuck by us, and I want to say thank you. I don't think they'll ever have time to watch this, but you know, they stuck by us through thick and thin, and our team really cares about the restaurant because they treat it like theirs, you know, and it's good. It's a win-win for everybody, and I think that makes it easier to sort of sacrifice when we need to and move on. And our clientele has been phenomenal. I met with a couple today. They were like, you know what? We weren't really super excited about going out, but we just wanted to come support you. And we're so happy that you're around. And, you know, they can come for the burger. They can come to support us. They can come. Everybody comes for their own reasons. And it's tough, but, you know, you'll find a way. We just got to find a way. And I think we didn't have an online ordering system. I never even wanted takeout. Well, we put in an online ordering system. So even when we do go back to business, I now have a better, right. So, I mean, there were some opportunities there that we were able to really maximize. But in the end, it's not all bad news. You know, we'll make it through on the other side together.
I mean, I don't think there's any other way to end an amazing Leave It on the Line. Is like the only way we're going to make it through on the other side is we're going to do it together.
Absolutely.
Salima, I greatly appreciate your time. It was a great chat. We'll have to have you on again as things progress for you, and as you guys, what's the next step? What happens to you next? What's the next reopen versus close versus reopen, and how it's affecting you. So I can't thank you enough to shave out, a good hour and 15 minutes or 20 minutes of your time, as long as we've been talking. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, and thank you for reaching out. I know you're busy, and for you truly have a heart where you're here to go beyond the walls of what's happening at the Honda Center. I just love that you reached out and said, hey, I do this little thing. Would you be interested? And then I came back to you and said, you still good on the offer?
Yeah. Thank you for being persistent. Thank you for being persistent. No, it's
good. I agree that the universe brings people together. So thank you.
Sure. You guys check out Grill a Burger. I have the comments. Well, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can go to it. It is grillaburger.com. Let me see. Yeah, it is grill-aburger.com. And you can also go to Chow, which is at Newport Beach on Balboa Island. Listen, I am Chef Jojo. I am the owner and operator of Extreme Culinary Outfitters, a family-run business. I cannot explain how excited I am to have actually spent a good hour and 10 minutes talking about a restaurateur coming in and doing what she does with her family. And it's what made me want to start in this business, is to have a family-run business, and they're getting after it. So try to support them in any way you can. And as always, cheers until next time.
Thank you. Take care, Chef. Thank you.
This was awesome.